Welcome back to episode 2 of The Mysterious Huntsman. Tonight, I'm going to be speaking with my good friend and paranormal role model, Angelia Sheer. Just wanted to give you guys an update on what she's been up to. Angelia has been investigating the UFO mystery for over 35 years. She founded the Sheer Research and is also the current state director and chief field officer of MUFON, which is the Mutual UFO Network of Tennessee. Over the years, Angelia and her team have investigated and interviewed thousands of witnesses and have been fortunate enough to be present during some major UFO, paranormal, and high strangeness events. She says that strange lights, orbs, and entity sightings have turned up in numerous credible witness testimonies over the years. Now, you can find Angelia on Facebook under Angelia K. Sheer, or you can find her on MUFON of TN Official or the ParaSheerResearch.com. All right, Angelia, welcome to The Mysterious Huntsman, and thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, Paul, thank you for having me on today. I was excited to talk to you today. And, you know, you may have to rein me in. I'm not sure how much time we have. But once you get me talking, you probably have to duct tape my mouth eventually because I love this. This is my passion. And just let me know if you had any particular thing you want to talk about on my research today.
Well, no, I definitely wanted to have you on because you are a wealth of knowledge, a wealth of information, especially in the state of Tennessee. And I know that you get around almost every aspect of the paranormal, and it doesn't matter if it's UFOs, if it's Bigfoot, if it's spiritual ghosts or whatever. I knew I just had to have you on here.
Well, you know, that's a great topic. It's interesting that you brought that up. I have been a UFO girl, I say, for about 40 years, meaning I had a passion. My dad taught science at Vanderbilt University, so I was reared on this. I understood the immensity of the universe a long time ago. So when I was young, I was like, how could you not even think these things are possible? So what has really been an interesting topic these days about, again, I am the state director for MUFON, and again, I have my own private group, Sheer Research. I'm mainly focused on UFO investigations, but as all true boots on the ground investigators know, there is always a crossover into the paranormal realm. And my definition, people out there, paranormal just doesn't mean a ghost. My definition of paranormal means anything that steps outside of our current understanding of science, which is a lot. I don't know why everyone thinks we know everything, but we're not even close. So the topic, what's really I've been working on is in all these fields. Let's just take 3 fields. Let's take cryptozoology, you know, the Bigfoot hunters. Let's take paranormal hunters, you know, ghost hunters, and then the UFO hunters. I don't know why, but it seems like the UFO people don't want to talk to the ghost people, and the ghost people don't want to talk to the UFO people, and the Bigfoot hunters don't want to talk to anybody. Right. And I finally, you know, have broken in. You know, I've spent years building my credibility because, you know, we have to keep, you know, our feet on the ground when we investigate. But I've really, you know, made some friends in each of those camps. About a year ago, I was invited to speak at a Bigfoot conference, and I was very, very, you know, complimented and happy. But I said, guys, I love you guys. I got to know them personally, and they're really true hunters. Don't even want to come out of the woods, that kind of thing. And I said, but I'm a UFO girl. And they go, we don't care. Just come and talk. Well, as I got to know these guys and, you know, they trusted me, I said, guys, we really need to share information. We need to, because all of this is connected. And, you know, my book coming up, I've got some ideas in there how I think it is connected. So I hope everybody will check that out eventually. But I said, we really need to work together. And I remember one priceless day, I had 2 hunters. I won't mention them right now, but really well-known guys, have some unbelievable casts. They have casts that are, I mean, they're so clear of these huge footprints, and all they want to do is just go out in the woods and sit there on their habituation site. But I said, guys, when you're out in the field, I said, before you get interaction, have you noticed these anomalous lights up in the trees? And I could tell by the look on their face, the answer was yes. And I said, guys, are you putting this in your field notes? Of which I knew they weren't putting anything in field notes. And I said, you need to keep field notes. When is this happening? Does it happen before the interaction? Does it happen after? I said, this is where we all need to work together. So when I was speaking this last weekend or so down in Georgia at the Georgia Bigfoot Conference, which was sold out, If anybody went, we thank everybody. It was just a blast. My lecture was sold out. I had to speak twice, and my lecture was about the UFO Bigfoot connection. And I really did some hard work on that. I do have cases that do cross over with crypto sightings, that kind of thing. And it really tickles me because, first of all, it's hard enough for someone to report a UFO, much less say, I saw a Bigfoot. They won't even say that. They'll say, I saw this large creature in the woods, okay? So I did have, I would say 10% of my cases, maybe probably a little bit less, have some kind of, either an entity or crypto, a Bigfoot type creature in there. But when I really went back and looked at history, guys, if you haven't looked at Stan Gordon's work, the UFO casebook, I think it's his book, there was a flap of sightings up in Pennsylvania in 1973 to 74, 1 year, 276 documented sightings of UFOs and Bigfoot. And he was working closely with law enforcement. So when I gave this lecture this weekend, I didn't know how it would be received, but it was very well received because we're living in an exciting time. People are really interested in this, and they want to know more. So there's a lot of information out there.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And just to reiterate what you said earlier, when you bring up or when you ask the right questions, they are like the hunters that actually saw the lights in the trees. They didn't think about it until you brought it up. And I've spoken with 3 people recently that have had UFO experiences. They've all pretty much had the same kind of accounts or experiences, but I asked them one thing because I've been hearing it. It's kind of recurring in a lot of the other stories. I asked them, do they smell or taste anything? And they say, why do you ask? So it's important to ask these questions. Now, at the time, I didn't want to tell them what I've heard before because I don't want to lead them into a false statement. But all 3 told me, yes, I smelt and I tasted something. I said, all right, well, what did you smell? And all 3 of them said it was kind of like a sulfur or a metallic. They said, but yeah, rotten eggs. And then I said, all right, did you taste anything? Well, yeah, why do you ask? And I said, well, because I'm asking you for a certain reason, but I don't want to tell you what I think you may have tasted or experienced. And I don't know what they experienced, but they said, well, like what? I said, did you have any kind of metallic taste in your mouth? They said, like touching a 9-volt battery to your tongue to test it. I said, yeah. And they said, that's crazy that you would ask that. They said, now that you bring that up, yes. It's awesome that you have that kind of information enough to go back and ask them because, some people don't recount the whole story until you bring them into that moment.
Oh, that's a great observation. And, over the years, 40 years, when I, if anybody out there has had a sighting, contact me. We're keeping a database here. I'm serious about my research. But over the years, I've created what I call a protocol. It takes about an hour to go through. And just as you said, sometimes people have fragmented memories. That's why I've studied hypnosis now for a few years, and I'm working with clients that way also. But I use a multi-level approach when I question people, and I'm glad you brought that up. I ask them intellectual questions, meaning what did you remember? And then I go across the board as far as I switch them from perspectives to visual perspectives. What did you see? What did you hear? What did you feel in your body? What did you smell? And it is amazing that people go, oh my God, it's like I didn't even remember that I smelled that. One of the really common things, that we hear a lot is that rotten eggs, sulfur, or I had a burnt wires, this taste of how burnt wires smell, it tasted. Sometimes an interesting one is cinnamon. There's kind of this hint of cinnamon kind of thing that's kind of interesting. So yeah, that it's amazing when you sit down and talk to someone. A lot of memories will really come back about things, for sure.
Right, and I learned that as well as the years I spent in law enforcement. Sometimes, even if you don't ask a lot of questions, just let that person talk. The more they talk, the more they're going to feel comfortable. They're going to be open with you, and I'm afraid of asking leading questions sometimes. So I just like to let them talk.
Well, the leading questions, that's a no for sure. Again, but again, where I'm tickled, and not really tickled that that it's funny, but when I say to my co-investigators, we were talking earlier before we started the show, this stuff is so weird sometimes you can't even make it up, meaning, I remember years ago, 15, 17 years ago, when the abduction phenomena was really going on, and it was all about, these people are just being led into what they describe. So I thought, well, I'm going to lead people, but I'm going to try to lead them a different way, just to see how much, if I would get any resistance, if they would go. I remember, for example, I was interviewing this woman. She was a seamstress born in Missouri. What happened to her when she was 16? Classic. Saw a big bright, they lived in the middle of nowhere in the sticks, farmhouse, bright light, paralyzed in her bed, being in her room. I said, oh, yeah, I know those beings. They're like 6 feet tall and black hair, right? And she goes, no, they're little short guys with like bald, and big eyes. So I couldn't even lead my true witnesses away. You know what I'm saying? They were definitive about what they saw. And I think you probably find that in your police work. When really credible, sound people give testimony, they know when something bad has happened. They know what's happened to them. Again, sometimes in the heat of the emotion, you might miss some details, but people know what's happened to them pretty much.
Yeah. And you would have made a great police detective, because I can tell your interview techniques fall right along with a lot of top investigators in the civilian world. I mean, that you look for micro expressions, their breathing patterns. I mean, if they're sweating or not, if they're looking to the left or right, whatever recall is or whatever they're trying to formulate. So you got it down pat.
Well, I won't say that. We're all learning. But one thing, too, that I say God put me here to be UFO girl, and I mean that, people out there listening. I really have a passion for this. And some of the cases that myself and other investigators like me, nobody else would help these people. Doctors think they're crazy. Law enforcement just didn't know what to do. They call the airport, and now people just shut them down. And a lot of people have really had trauma. I mean, one case I've been working 3-4 years now that had the missing time, and we have the audio recorded. I'll never forget the first time I sat down with this gentleman and we listened to that audio together. He had a complete post-traumatic stress reaction to just listening to the recording that he captured. I mean, his pupils dilated, he flushed up his neck, his hands started shaking and sweating, and whatever happened to him, you can't fake that. Something traumatic happened to him, that can't be faked. And even on the phone, when I, talk to people and we have phone interviews, I had a woman the other day that saw these. She said that she was in college. She was just doing her homework, went into her bedroom. She looked out the window. There were these 3 alien creatures looking in her window. She said, I was terrified. I was frozen. And, that's been like 15 years ago. And when she recounted it on the phone, she couldn't get her breath. I had to calm her down. It's okay. Just feel the chair beneath you. Everything's okay. But that just shows that these things are terrifying to people.
Yeah, they are. And I'm not really changing the subject, but just speaking of traumatic experiences, I know you have a very good friend, and we all know who, or I know who you're going to talk about, is Travis Walton. Incredible story. Early 70s, I believe it was Snowflake, Arizona, or just outside there in Sitgraves National Forest, the loggers. And you were gracious enough to have me over last November to meet him and just have a little intimate meeting. It was an incredible night. I met great people, great friends, but I remember Travis being one of the most grounded, most normal guys I've ever met, and just solid, just a solid guy. And if you want, tell us your relationship.
Travis and I, we've known each other for years and years, and I have to say, Travis, I love the way, all of us investigate different, but Travis, I mean, humans treated him worse than the aliens. I mean, or whatever happened to him, because the movie, of course, is Hollywood, because what happened to him, he was struck by discharge off this ship. No one shot him. No one, he said, I was a dummy for running up there. I shouldn't have done that. But anyway, these beings, whatever it was, they actually saved his life. Right. And so when he came back, of course he had trauma from that. You know, he said, Ange, none of us talked about that kind of stuff when we were young. That was a long time ago, 40 plus years now, I think. But he endured so much trauma from that. And then from the rejection and all the media stuff that surrounded him. So, his thing now is he was so traumatized by just the people around him that anything he does, he says, I don't talk about anything publicly or otherwise that I can't document. He's going to document it every step of the way, which I really respect. And he's just a great friend. When I sit with him, just like you being a police officer, you can tell that even though you're recovered and even though you've spoken about it, you can tell when something's happened to someone. You really know. And so matter of fact, Travis texted me the other day. I think he's in Argentina right now because we're going to be speaking together in Knoxville at Alien Expo. And, all of us, when we get together, of course, we shop talk. So, we were trying to plan on getting together and what we were going to do when we were over in Knoxville. But, yeah, he's a great man, a gentleman. I think as you met him there, he spends time talking to everybody and to share his story. I mean, that was a big deal. That his story was a true big deal.
Yeah, and I tried my best not to ask him or about the details because I know he gets asked daily and didn't know he was a fairly accomplished guitar player. Remember, we sat there on the couch and we sang till midnight, great group of guys. I know you also had Debbie Cauble there. And she was with Bud Hopkins, I guess, and just a lot of the experiencers that are just incredible. I mean, and just to segue, I could talk about UFO, or I know you could. We could talk about this phenomena all night. I just want to touch base in a little bit of everything that you do. And I know you guys have been up to Octagon Hall. Well, you've been all over Tennessee and really everywhere, but you've had some amazing accounts of everything. Like I said, from the ghosts, the haunted places, the cryptids, the UFOs. What's going on up at Octagon Hall? Because I know you actually attended or actually spoke at or even worked an investigation involving like the trifecta at Octagon Hall with Bigfoot, UFOs, and ghosts. So what'd you find up there?
I just wanted to go back for one thing. Okay, just with Travis, I want the audience to think about something. With Travis and Deb, Deb Cauble, she was a.k.a. Kathy Davis, and she was actually the subject of Bud Hopkins' book, Intruders, which a lot of younger people don't know about that. If you haven't seen that, go back, read that book. Go back, and there's a mini-series, right. The Incredible Visitation at Copley Woods. Deb and I are really good friends. She's going to come down here soon, and we're hoping to all go to Knoxville together. But one thing I want people to realize, those people were the pioneers in this field. They risked everything by coming forward. Everything. Their lives were not theirs for years and years and years, and we have to give them a lot of credit. Now things are more mainstream and it's more accepted, but I really just have to say that over and over because they were some brave people. Travis, Deb, all those people. I'm trying to think of the other. Oh, Whitley Strieber, and and I've just gone blank now. The couple that was abducted, Betty and Barney Hill. I know, their aunt. But anyway, going forward to Octagon Hall, that was really it was Paranormal Dares put that on, and they called me and they said, "Listen, we're doing a trifecta, and we want you to be the UFO girl." And I said, "I am there." And one of my best friends is the state director for Kentucky, Barry Gaunt, and he has two groups like me. Because when we're in MUFON, we study and do exactly MUFON protocol. But in our own private groups, we can study whatever the heck we want. And all of us, like we talked about, we always know that these things cross over. And, I wrote a big article for MUFON last year for the Journal, and I said, any good scientist, when evidence keeps coming forward by credible witnesses and it's present in 70 to 80, 90% of your ongoing cases, you don't throw that out. I don't care how strange it is. And so I said, over the years, I refused to throw out paranormal components in my case. So at Octagon Hall, I was really shocked. Usually with big groups like that, you know what I mean? A lot of times you'll get things, you won't get things. Right. But Octagon Hall never disappoints. That's all I can say. It's like even for me, I was invited up the first time as a guest to a novice hunt, which is usually not my thing. But Barry said, Ange, come up, we'll talk, we'll visit, bring your FLIR cameras. So I'm sitting there at the table and everybody's doing their thing. And I was, I'm not skeptical that the phenomena exist. I'm just thought, well, I won't get, and I mean, the first night on my FLIR camera, I got almost a full body apparition. And when Bear goes, hey, we see you there, will you wave at us? It put its hand up and waved. Oh, wow. I was shocked. I have that on my FLIR. But on the trifecta, again, I was shocked. I was first one up, man up. I did my lecture on a missing time case. And the reason I did that case, because it was near the Octagon Hall. They wanted me to have something in the area, so it was within 30 miles, 40 miles, where this person had missing time. And so anyway, I thought, well, and I gave the lecture, and we had a group of people, about 20, I bet we had 20, 25 people, and we had to wait till sundown, and we got all of our gear, and I thought, what, I hope we see something. But I really was not expecting to see anything, especially people, people aren't trained hunters. A lot of them weren't dressed properly, and we worry about people because it was really cold, So we go out in part of the back pasture over near a cemetery. And I swear to goodness, we had night vision. I love these things. Night vision binoculars that actually record. They will record, they're just one of my favorite pieces of equipment. And do you know we got orbs that actually a huge orb appeared in the tree, not above, not a little light somewhere else. It was down in the tree canopy. And it actually split into two orbs while we were watching it. And I actually was able to, the people that were on the hunt that night got to see it. And we captured pictures of it. So that was, pretty incredible for a public hunt, that kind of thing. I thought it was. So Octagon Hall, it never disappoints. Never. I mean, it's pretty incredible what goes on up there.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to have to make it up there. I wanted to go along with that, but I was out of town. And like you were saying, well, you don't always get evidence, or not evidence. You don't always get your EVPs. You don't always, you know as well as I do, I've been on countless investigations where you sit there all night and nothing ever happens. So, you have to be dedicated to this line, and you have to really just be passionate just to keep going back over and over and over again. But that one EVP out of hundreds of hours is worth it. Yeah. Or that one picture on the FLIR camera is worth it. Just so I don't know. I don't know what makes people like you and me just keep going back for more.
Well, that's such a good point. I had someone ask me a question at one of my radio shows. They said, well, do you explain things? Well, guys, we explain 98% of things that come in. For every 100 cases, we get that wow case. You're just hearing about the wow cases. You're not hearing that, they saw the ISS, or they saw a satellite, or they saw a plane at a strange angle. Or during the lunar eclipse or the solar eclipse, I got 300 photographs of lens flares because everybody was taking pictures directly of the sun, that kind of thing. So we explain a lot of things. And like you said, all of us true hunters, we actually, I think Matt Delph, I'm going to shout out to him if he's listening, he said he was going to write an article about this because people don't realize the rigors that we under. The other day, I'm a girl and I study FLIR cameras and snake chaps in my my spare time. I had to buy different snake chaps. The snakes are horrible this year. I had one crawl across my legs about 2 weeks ago, and it wasn't a poisonous snake. I was sitting by a tree and it just crawled across my legs, and I was like, oh my goodness, I knew what it was. But people don't realize, we are out all night long. We're out in the cold and the rain and in dangerous places. We try not to go where we need breathing apparatus, but there's been some places that I'm like, I don't know if we should be in here. People have gotten sick from that stuff. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, and what keeps us going? Matt, the other day we were talking and we were interviewed by a newspaper over in Georgia, and I love this answer. They go, what? Why? How can you be so disciplined? And the answer is, we have no choice. I don't know why. It's like I eat, live, and breathe this. Something just, this is my job. And also the biggest thing, too, I want to personally know, but when I can help just one person overcome their fear or help them, with some situation, my whole group, that's worth it. That really is worth it.
Yeah, you're right. And on that point, I've only just recently jumped into this podcast thing, and I'm already getting so many emails, and I'm talking. I'm from Alabama. I've spoken with so many people already, and you know what? All they want to do is just be heard without being judged. They want to be listened to without being ridiculed. And I mean, I have some episodes coming up, and I'm trying not to. I don't want them to thank me for anything. I'm just providing a platform, right? But they thank me for listening because they said every time I tell my family, every time I tell my buddies or whatever, they get made fun of, and it's their story. Or of course, we're going to have hoaxers. We're going to have people calling in. Just with the craziest stuff, but you can tell when they're being sincere. You can tell when they've been hurting, and all I want to do is listen. And I'm no therapist by any means, but it helps to be there. It helps to listen to these people's story, and that's kind of what I wanted to start here.
That's awesome. Before we started the show, we actually were talking. Just kind of. Of course, like the investigators that we are, we're sharing recent stuff that we had. But, I started my lecture out, and I wasn't planning it. I actually had a family that approached me at Georgia, and it was the father and the mother and 2 children. And the mother had a sighting of an orb, and her whole family was just standing there laughing at her while she was actually trying to tell me. I just kind of looked at them, and they kind of stopped. And I started the lecture out, and I said, guys, so this is what we're going to do today. I'm going to make up a story. I'm going to make up a story that I saw a UFO, and then I saw an orb, or I saw a Bigfoot, and I'm going to tell my family, and I'm going to tell the people I work with, so you guys can make fun of me the rest of my life. Guys, come on, that doesn't make sense. Why would you do that? These people, if you've known someone in your family and they're credible and they're down to earth and they're not prone to, telling you lies and tall tales, if they tell you something strange, just go with it and believe them. Why would you treat your family that way? Our judicial system is based on credible witness testimony. They can put you in prison for credible witness testimony. And yet we have credible witnesses coming forward. I know, I've interviewed 2,500 of them by this point. And they have these incredible stories, and they just need someone to listen. And when their family rejects them and their friends, come on, it's 2019. We live in an infinite universe. Guys, please believe them. Please help them. And I agree with you. I've had grown men that were hardened military guys, never even told their wives, that sat down in private and would break down into tears after 12 minutes and apologize over and over. And I would go, stop apologizing. This is a huge burden that people carry around. They know what they saw. It changed their whole paradigm of life. Their whole belief system sometimes has completely been shattered. Can you imagine? And you have no one to talk to about it? That's horrible in my book. That really is horrible.
Yeah, it really is. And I don't know. Like I said, we could talk probably for the next 2 to 3 days. And I don't want to take up much of your time, but I appreciate you coming on here. And definitely want to have this happen again, and we can talk about everything else that we didn't cover today. But, just tell us how people can get in touch with you and your websites. You can say that way better than I can. So, but yeah, thank you so much, and I'll leave you with it.
Thank you guys so much. Thanks, Paul, for having me on. Like I said, I could talk forever. I would be honored and thrilled to come back sometime. We can talk about specific cases, whatever you would like to do. But yeah, I shout out to people out there. If you've had a UFO sighting or some kind of anomalous event and you need someone to talk to, I urge you. I talk to 7-8 people a week. I have people from all over the country calling me. You can find me on Facebook at Angelia Sheer. That's my public page. Or my private research page is Pear Sheer Research on Facebook, or pearsheerresearch.com. And also we have I'm the state director for MUFON. There's 2 ways you can report. You can actually go, if you want to make a technical report in a database, go to MUFON.com and submit a sighting there. If it's in Tennessee, it will come across my desk. Or if you don't, some people are a little shaky about putting their information in a database. So if you don't want to do that, you just contact me privately. Those sites, my email address is on there, and we can set up a private interview. And again, I do keep all your information anonymous. I've never betrayed anyone in 40 years. This is just about gathering the information. So thank you very much for having me today.
Well, that is a wrap on episode 2 of The Mysterious Huntsman, featuring Angelia Sheer, the Tennessee State Director of MUFON and founder of Sheer Research. And remember, guys, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, reach out to my Facebook page, Mysterious Huntsman, or send me an email at mysteriousHuntsman@gmail.com. See you next time.